The last time the shelves in my town went bare, the shelves in my house didn't, and yours don't have to either. I've got parched corn in a jar I made over a fire 2 summers back, and I could eat it tonight. There's no freezer, no power, and no seal on that lid. That's not a trick I read somewhere. That's how my grandmother fed a family through every winter of her life. But she never once ran to a store and bought a cart full of cans. She knew 15 things instead, and today, they're yours. An empty shelf almost never means the food is gone. It means the truck didn't come, and that truck is the tail end of a chain with more links in it than you can count, and not one of those links belongs to you or answers to you when you're standing there in the aisle with an empty cart. My grandmother's food chain had 4 links: the garden, the woods, the creek, and the wall of jars in the back room. I'm Wes Kingfisher. I'm 64 years old. I'm of Cherokee heritage, and I was raised by my grandmother Ada Kingfisher in the hills of eastern Oklahoma, on the same few acres where I'm sitting right now. She taught me the plants and the kitchen. My grandfather and my uncles taught me the woods, and 40 years on the powwow trail, from the northern plains down to the desert southwest, taught me the rest. The old ones never wrote any of this down. I'm telling it to you before it's gone. Number 1, parched corn. Take dry field corn, the hard kind, and put it in a dry cast iron skillet over medium heat or over a bed of coals. No oil, no water, nothing but heat and motion. Keep it moving. The kernels swell up and go the color of a pecan and start to smell like popcorn's older brother. Pull it off, cool it all the way down, and put it in a jar. That corn will sit on your shelf for years. Nothing grows in it because the last of the water is gone. And it's already cooked, which is the part people miss. You can eat it dry by the handful, walking down a fence line. You can grind it to meal and pour hot water over it and have mush in about a minute. Runners carried it in a pouch. Hunters carried it in a pouch. Every nation with corn had a version of this, and they all figured out the same thing, which is that you will not always have a fire and an hour when you're hungry. Number 2, leather breeches. Get yourself a needle and some cotton thread. Take fresh green beans, whole, stem end on, and run the needle right through the middle of each one until you've got a string of them 2 or 3 feet long. Hang it somewhere dry with air moving, out of direct sun. A porch rafter, a nail in the kitchen wall, the back of a closet. Leave them alone until they rattle. Now they'll keep in a paper sack all winter with no jar, no lid, no canner, and no power going into any of it. When you want them, soak them a few hours and simmer them slow with a piece of fat meat until they give up. They don't taste like green beans anymore. They taste like something else entirely, deeper and a little smoky. And my grandmother had a string of them going on that porch every August of my childhood. Now, that string of beans is 1 page out of a book I put together called The Native American Way. It's 101 of them. The remedies and the wild foods, the preserving, the fire and water and shelter skills, and the recipes that carried my family through every winter I can remember. Written down plain, 1 step at a time, the way my grandmother handed it to me, and the way elders all over Indian country handed it to me after that. It's $17 right now, marked down from $47. That's less than 1 walk down the pharmacy aisle for knowledge that had 10,000 years of testing behind it before anybody thought to charge a dime for it. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you use to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up. Give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time. There is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. So that's 2 ways to put food up. But putting it up is the easy half. The next 3 are about where it goes after that. And this is where the old ones were smarter than my first root cellar was. Number 3, the cache pit. Our people up on the northern plains along the Missouri River dug pits shaped like a bell, narrow at the mouth, maybe a couple feet across, then belling out wide underneath. They lined the whole thing with dry grass and slabs of bark, filled it with shelled corn and strings of dried squash, capped it with more grass, then earth, then ash, and trampled dirt over the top so your eye would walk right past it. Here's why that shape. Below the frost line, the ground holds one steady cool temperature all year long, summer and winter, and it does it for free. No compressor, no wire, no bill. The narrow mouth means less warm air trades in and out every time you open it. You can do a small version this fall. Sink a clean metal trash can into a well-drained bank, high ground, never a wet spot, lid above the soil line, straw packed around your carrots and turnips and cabbages, and take the drainage part seriously, because the one thing that will ruin your whole pit is water sitting in the bottom of it. Ask me how I know. Number 4, dried squash. A winter squash is mostly water. That's the whole problem with it. It's heavy, it bruises, and if one goes soft in the pile, it takes its neighbors with it. So our people cut the water out. Take a hard squash or a pumpkin, peel it, and cut it into rings. Or, if you've got a steady hand, peel it around and around into one long ribbon. Hang the rings over a pole in the sun and the wind, or over the wood stove, or in your oven on the lowest setting with the door cracked. They dry down hard and light, like a chip you could snap. A wagon load becomes a sack you can carry with one arm. In February, you drop a handful into a pot of broth, and it comes back to life and thickens the whole thing. The Haudenosaunee did it. Our people on the plains did it. My grandmother did it on the back porch with a broomstick and 2 chairs, and nobody who ate her soup in January ever asked where the squash came from. Now notice what those first 4 all have in common, because it's the whole point of this video, and I'll come back to it at the end. Every one of them got done in a month, when there was more of something than anybody could eat. Number 5, cattail. If there's a marsh or a creek edge anywhere near you, there's a grocery store in it, and it runs 4 different departments across the year. Spring, you pull the young inner shoots out of the base and eat them raw or cooked. They taste like cucumber crossed with a mild onion. Early summer, before the flower spike turns brown, you boil the green spike and eat it off the core like a skinny ear of corn. A few weeks later, that spike is loaded with yellow pollen, and you bend it into a bag and shake. And that pollen goes straight into your cornbread. Fall and winter, you dig the roots and wash the starch out of them in a bucket of water. Pour off the water, and you're left with a white starch that dries into flour. Now listen close, because this is the part that matters more than any of it. Cattail grows in the same water as blue flag iris. An iris will make you very sick. Before either one flowers, the leaves fool people. So here's how you tell. A cattail leaf is round on the back, spongy at the base, and the leaves come up out of a fat white core. An iris leaf is flat as a knife blade, and the leaves come out in a fan, like a hand of cards. And my rule is simpler than either one of those. I don't take a cattail out of a stand unless I can see the brown seed head standing in it, and I don't take one out of water I wouldn't put my own cup in. The next one is the one I'd argue with a man over, because it's the piece the modern world picked up, put down, and then paid for. Number 6, corn cooked with ash. We call corn selu, and for thousands of years, the people who grew it never once cooked it plain. They boiled it in water with clean hardwood ashes stirred in, hickory or oak, no charcoal chunks. You boil it until you can rub a kernel between your fingers and the skin slips right off. Then you rinse it hard, rub off all those hulls, and cook it out. That's hominy. Everybody knows the ash makes the corn tender and easy to grind. The second half of it almost never gets taught. That ash water changes something inside the kernel and frees up the niacin in it, and corn otherwise holds on to that niacin so tight that a body can't get at it. A person living on corn needs it badly. Think about that for a second. When corn traveled off this continent, the corn went and the ash pot stayed behind. And in the early 1900s, whole regions of the American South were eating corn 3 meals a day and getting sick. And it took a doctor named Joseph Goldberger and years of work to figure out that the problem was in the diet. Our people had the answer sitting in the bottom of the pot the whole time. 10,000 years of testing. That's the guarantee on this one. Number 7, pemmican. This is the one I'd take with me if I could only take one, and I learned to make it right, sitting on the ground, with friends out on the plains, not out of a book. Start with lean meat, and I mean lean. Trim every bit of fat off it, because fat left inside the meat is what turns rancid on you. Slice it thin, dry it hard over low smoke or in a low oven until it snaps instead of bends, then pound it to a coarse powder. Now render your fats separately, which I'll get to in a second, and mix it into that meat powder about half and half by weight until it packs like wet sand. Dried berries go in if you've got them. Pack it tight into a jar or a bag, and it will sit there for years without a refrigerator. And pound for pound, there isn't much you can put in a pack that carries more food value. The reason it works is worth knowing. 3 things spoil food: water, air, and warmth. Drying takes the water out. The fat pours in around every particle and seals the air out. And that's the whole engineering of it. Done 10,000 years before anybody put a shelf life on a package. Which brings me to the ingredient nobody plans for and everybody runs out of first. Number 8, rendered fat. You can be surrounded by lean meat and still go weak on it. The old trappers had a name for that, rabbit starvation, and the Arctic explorers who lived through it wrote it down by that name. Lean protein on its own will not carry you through a winter. So here's how you make the thing that will. Get beef fat from a butcher or the fat off a deer, cut it into small pieces, and put it in a heavy pot on low with a splash of water in the bottom so it doesn't scorch. Let it melt slow. It'll take a couple hours and your house will smell like a kitchen. When the solid bits have gone golden and crisp, pour the liquid through a cloth into clean jars and let it set up white and hard. That's tallow. Cool, dark, and clean. It keeps for a year and then some. And it's not just cooking grease. That's your frying fat, your pemmican binder, the base of every salve my grandmother ever made, waterproofing for boots and leather. And if you drop a twist of cotton in a little dish of it, it's a lamp. My grandmother kept a grease jar by the stove her whole life, and I keep one by mine. And that jar is the cheapest energy in this house. Number 9, acorns. There's a calorie tree standing in yards all over this country, and every fall people rake its food into bags and set it out on the curb. Now, acorns come with one catch, and I'll give you the catch before I give you the method. They're full of tannin, and tannin is bitter and hard on your stomach. That's why they need one extra step. Skip that step, and you'll hate them and never come back to them. Start with the right oak. White oak group has rounded lobes on the leaf, no bristles on the tips, and sweeter acorns with less tannin in them. Red oak group has pointed lobes with a little bristle on each tip, and those acorns are loaded so they take longer. Either one works. White is just faster. Gather in fall, drop them in a bucket of water, and throw out every one that floats, because the floaters have a worm in them. Shell them, grind the meat coarse, then leach it. Cold leach means putting the meal in a cloth bag in a cold creek or a jug in the refrigerator, changing the water twice a day for several days and sometimes a week or more. Hot leach means pouring boiling water through the meal over and over. Cold takes longer and keeps the flour better for baking. You don't go by the clock on this, you go by your tongue. Taste it. When the bitterness is gone, it's done. Dry the meal out, and you got flour that our people out in California built entire villages and whole years around. Number 10, canucci. Canucci is hickory nut soup, and it's my grandmother's kitchen in one bowl. You gather shagbark hickory nuts in October, whole. Now the way you'd go at that with a nutcracker is one nut at a time, picking the meat out of every shell with a pick. And there goes your afternoon and most of your patience. My people did not do that. You pound the nuts whole, shell and all, in a tall wooden mortar until the whole thing is a rough, oily paste. You roll that paste into balls about the size of your fist and set them to dry, and they'll keep. When you want soup, you drop a ball into boiling water and stir it. The shell fragments sink. The oil and the nut meat go into the water. You strain the shell out through a cloth, and what's left is a rich, sweet nut broth that you pour over hominy. The genius in that is where they put the labor. They let the water do the sorting instead of doing it with their fingers. That is the thinking underneath every single thing in this video. And I'd like to hear from you on this one. Did your grandmother or grandfather have something like this? From any tradition, some food, or remedy nobody writes down? Put it below. That's exactly the kind of knowledge that dies when nobody asks. I read every single one. Number 11, sunchokes. Sunchokes are a sunflower. Tall, skinny, small, yellow flowers late in the season. And underneath the whole plant, there's a knot of tubers that look like a knuckly potato. Plant them once in a corner where you don't mind them taking over, because they will. Then leave them. Frost hits and the plant dies back, and the tubers get sweeter down there. And here's the part that makes them belong in this video. You do not dig them and store them. You leave them in the ground and dig what you need in January with a fork out of frozen dirt, and they come up crisp. It's a pantry that stores itself. One honest word, because I'd rather you hear it from me. Sunchokes are full of a starch called inulin that some people's stomachs argue with the first few times. Start with a small serving, cook them well, and most folks settle right into them. Our people were growing and trading these all over the eastern half of this country long before a single ship showed up. The French took them home, called them artichokes, and the name stuck to the wrong plant forever. Number 12, the fish trap. Everything so far has needed your hands and your hours. This one works while you're asleep. Our people built stone weirs in the shallow parts of rivers, a long V of piled rock with the point aimed downstream and a gap at the point. Fish moving down the current hit that wall, follow it in, and funnel through the gap into a basket or a holding pen of stakes. In the morning you walk out and take what you need and let the rest go. Some of those stone V's are still sitting in eastern rivers today. You can see them from a bridge at low water if you know what you're looking at. Now, fish weirs and traps are regulated in almost every state, and a lot of them are flat out illegal for regular fishing. So check your own rules before you build anything. I'm teaching you how a river thinks. The lesson underneath it is the one that matters anyway, which is that if you set the water up right, the water does your work while you sleep. Number 13, wild rice. Up north, our people in the lake country harvest manumin, and it isn't rice at all. It's the seed of a tall grass that grows out of the water. Two people go out in a canoe. One stands in the back and poles through the bed. The other sits with two smooth cedar sticks, bends the stalks over the boat with one, and taps the heads with the other. And that's the whole thing. You tap. You don't beat it. You don't strip it. You tap. Now think about what that does. Only the grain that's ripe falls off into the canoe. Everything that isn't ripe stays on the stalk for the next boat. And a good bit of what you knock loose falls in the water and plants next year's bed. The harvest method is also the planting method. Nobody had to write that rule down and enforce it, because the tool itself makes it happen. Back on shore, you parch it over a slow fire, thresh the hull off, and winnow it in the wind on a birch bark tray. Dry, it keeps for years in a sack. I've knocked rice up there on the circuit, and my arms remembered it for 3 days. Number 14, the winter tea. Come February, there's nothing green growing and nothing green in the crisper drawer either, and that has been the hard part of winter on this continent forever. Eastern white pine has soft blue-green needles that come in bundles of 5, and 5 is how you know it. Snip a small handful of the green needles, chop them up, pour water just off the boil over them, put a lid on it, and let it sit about 10 minutes. Don't boil it hard. That just cooks the good out of it. It tastes like a Christmas tree in the best way, and a cup of it in February is a fine thing. And here is the identification that is not optional. A yew is not a pine. Yew is that dark, flat-needled shrub planted around houses and banks and parking lots all over this country, with little red berry-like cups on it, and yew is poisonous. Never brew a yew. If you cannot tell for certain which tree you are standing under, you leave it alone and go inside. There is no shame in that, and there is a great deal of shame in guessing. The history on this one is worth your time. In the winter of 1536, a French crew under Jacques Cartier was frozen in on the St. Lawrence River and dying, and a young Iroquoian man named Domagaya showed them how to make a drink from the needles and bark of a tree. The men who drank it got better. That is one of the earliest times anybody wrote down what our people already knew about the trees they lived under. And as with anything you put in a cup, if you're on medications, have a word with your doctor before you add something new. Number 15, seed. Every one of the 14 things I just gave you gets you through a season. This one gets you through the next one and the one after that. Save seed from the best plants you've got, never the leftovers. Let the beans dry right on the vine until they rattle in the pod. Pick your corn from the biggest ears with the fullest tips. Take squash seed from a fruit you deliberately let go way past the eating. Dry everything hard, store it cool and dark and dry, and write the year on it, because you will not remember. And grow the old open pollinated varieties, not hybrids. Hybrid seed doesn't come back true, so that packet is a packet you have to go buy again every single spring for as long as you want to eat. The old varieties just keep handing you next year. I'll tell you how seriously my nation takes this. The Cherokee Nation runs a seed bank and gives those old varieties out to citizens every year. And back in 2019, the Cherokee Nation put them into the Svalbard Global Seed Vault up in the Arctic in Norway, the first tribe in the United States to do it. Cherokee White Eagle corn, the Trail of Tears, bean, the Candy Roaster, squash. Sit with that a minute. Some of those seeds walked the Trail of Tears in a woman's apron pocket, carried by people who had lost their homes, their land, and half of everybody they loved and who still would not let go of the seed. Now they are sitting in a mountain in the Arctic, and no truck, no store, and no empty shelf can ever touch them. Those were never 15 tricks. They were one calendar. Spring gives you shoots and greens. Summer gives you beans and pollen and the green corn. Fall gives you nuts and squash and the harvest and the fat. Winter is when you eat what the other 3 seasons handed you. Every single thing in this video is a deposit made in a month when there was too much of something, and that is the whole reason my grandmother never stood in an empty aisle and panicked. She had 4 or 5 different doors open all year, every year, and the store in town was only ever the most convenient one of them. You do not need all 15. Pick 2 that fit where you live and do them this season, and that shelf in town stops being the thing your family depends on. And every one of these 15 has its own page in the Native American way, from the first green thing you can eat in spring to the last jar you put up in the fall with nothing in it you have to buy. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera and point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you're watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Now, if you enjoyed this video, you will enjoy the video right now on screen even more. I can assure you on that. Click it right now, my friend.